Hello and welcome back. In this video we're going to take a quick look at the new adjustment presets option in Photoshop 25.5.1 released in early 2024. And we'll ask the question, are they worth the hassle or is it just a gimmick? So let's jump in and have a look at how they work. So the new feature in Photoshop is the ability to create your own presets based on adjustment layers. And if you go to the adjustments panel, you'll see that there were previously available adjustment presets that were provided by Photoshop, and quite honestly I wasn't a big fan of these. They were pretty horrible, and there are more if you click on more, but we're not interested in that. We're interested in the new option is to create your own presets. So how do we set about doing that? Well, it's actually very simple. With an image open, and here's an example that I've used many times before, simply we're going to create our new adjustment layers that we want to save. And going back to your single adjustments, let's start with a curves adjustment, and I'll go to a fairly aggressive medium contrast adjustment, and let's say we add to that some hue saturation, boost that somewhat, and maybe let's go a bit crazy and let's put on a LUT on there and see how that works. And then we can, once we've finished playing with these, and well, let's just go something really crazy, and we'd want that to blend that way back to something quite soft. You can see it's quite a strange looking set, but let's say that this is the adjustment preset we want to save for future use. So with our adjustment layers created, we would shift click to select all of them, and then we simply go up to the tab that says your presets, click on the plus symbol, and it will give it a name, preset 1, which is not a lot of use. Let's just call this test, and then once we've done that, it's saved. So if I now just remove those 3 adjustment layers we created, and I come back up to my presets, and here's the one called test. Now if I just hover over it, it gives me a preview, which is probably the greatest benefit of these presets, because it saves you having to actually go and apply them before you see the effect. And if you move your mouse cursor off that, you'll see the difference. Now this is pretty horrible, and there are others that I've created. I've created a grungy one which looks pretty ordinary, but let's try it on a different image. Let's try on this old DC3 image that I've used many times. Have a look at the test. Well, that's pretty dramatic, but of course if we apply it by just clicking on it, we now get a new group of those adjustment layers, and of course we can go in and play with those at any time. And let's say we didn't like that particular LUT, or we wanted to change it, we can just then blend it back and adjust it. But the preset gives you those basic adjustments in one click. So let's turn that one off, and let's try one of my other ones, which was I called it Color Pop, which involves a gradient fill and some other bits and pieces. And of course the presets are not going to work on every image. In fact, they're probably only going to work on a few images. I can go and look at this old one, this old building, and if I tried the grunge preset, yeah, that's not too bad. Or even the dark cool one, which was basically just removed some of the saturation. And my test one, well, that's a bit excessive. But the simple thing is you can create your own presets and you can preview them by just hovering on them. So let's just get rid of that pretty awful preset. Let's go back to our DC3, and by default it will be showing you with the options that there, all of the adjustment layers within the group visible. And here's my adjustments and my original image, and then we can go back and have a look at that again. And as we hover over them, you can see the effect. So that's simply it. It's not a big deal. It's of some use, I think, where you want to just be able to apply similar adjustments to multiple images, but it's not going to suit every photograph, and you'll probably need to end up adjusting them again and again to suit the particular image. But there it is. That's the new feature for creating adjustment presets in Photoshop. So finally, let's just have a look at a few other examples to see how these presets work on a variety of different images. Let's go to a more subtle landscape. Let's try a couple of these presets. My test one that I made maybe is a little bit too excessive on that, but still could work. Basic contrast and saturation, yes, that would work on that image. The dark cool, it just looks a bit bland. My grungy setting, yeah, not so great. The color pop gives you a pretty weird sort of color. So obviously for some images they're going to work and not work again. Let's take this other one. I've used this previously. My test looks pretty wild. That green is really luminescent, so that's really not going to work. Again, as we scroll through these, you can see that you can make any sort of a preset and it will work for some images and not for others. Let's go back to one that's got a little bit more color in it. If I apply my test, which also boosted the contrast and the color, that's really gone quite wild. The basic contrast and saturation actually is not too bad on this image. This was fairly subtle, and the simple contrast and saturation adjustment works quite nicely, but the other ones again don't really work so well, and that one's pretty horrific. So a couple more examples. A portrait, this is one I created using Photoshop's AI tools, and let's apply this to a portrait. No, definitely not. The contrast and saturation, possible. The dark cool one actually is not too bad. On this particular image, the grunge and the color pop don't really work. So one last example, another AI created image. The test one again, because that's way over the top, looks terrible. Contrast and saturation, you could possibly get away with that. It's a little bit excessive. The dark cool one, now this girl really looks like a serial killer. For some reason that really has made her look quite creepy. The grungy one, no, looks really strange, and the color pop doesn't really work. So the bottom line out of using these presets in Photoshop for commonly used adjustments, if you have a lot of images that are of a fairly similar nature, then these are going to be really helpful, will speed up your workflow, definitely. But when you're dealing with a variety of different images, a set of presets based on one particular type of image is unlikely to work for other types of images. So it's not really going to be a great benefit. But anyway, that's another tool in Photoshop, and I hope this has been interesting, and I look forward to seeing you again soon. Thanks for watching.